In Ecuador, social movements continue with the national strike, called by the Indigenous Confederation after the government withdrew from the dialogue table. In the United States, the death toll of migrants found inside a trailer truck in Texas rise to 53, according to the Bexar County Coroner's Office. The Russian government rejects NATO's stance in labeling the Eurasian nation as a threat to the member countries of the bloc and its allies. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. In Ecuador, the national strike called by the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities continues after the government abandoned the dialogue table. Social and human rights organizations have denounced repression by the riot police units of the National Police against demonstrators and the residents of a popular neighborhood located in Quito while they attacked with tear gas bombs the campus of the University of Cuenca. The events took place within the framework of the announcement of President Guillermo Lasso to suspend the dialogues and to ignore the indigenous leaders. Meanwhile, Leonidas Issa, the president of the CONAIE, questioned the decision of the executive and urged to guarantee peace and the non-militarization of the reception places. Ecuador's National Assembly failed to get the votes needed to pass the impeachment motion against President Guillermo Lasso. With 84 affirmative votes, 42 against, and 11 abstentions, the parliament rejected the so-called cross-death mechanism. Such process needed 92 votes, which represents the qualified majority of the parliament. Among those who voted in favor of the removal is the president of the National Assembly, Virgilio Saquicela. After more than 18 hours of debate in 3 days, the assembly closed the discussion of the death cross issue, promoted by the parliamentarians of the Union of Hope, following the political and social crisis that the country is experiencing. Uruguay's National Construction Union announced a 4-hour nationwide strike to demand more government investment in infrastructure. Demonstrators gathered at the terrace of the Montevideo City Hall and marched towards the Ministry of Economy and Finance located along Colonial Street. For this strike, the National Construction Union presented 4 essential demands, discussed and drafted by construction workers throughout the country. These issues are work, housing, social security, and collective negotiations. After the mobilization, protesters held a rally outside the Ministry of Economy and the Finance headquarters. The president of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, visited the leader of the indigenous movement, Milagro Sala, hospitalized due to a deep vein thrombosis. In declarations to local media after his arrival in the province of Jujuy, the head of state ratified his commitment to the social leader, at the same time that he described the judicial process against the social leader as a political persecution. Likewise, Fernandez called on the courts of the province and the Supreme Court to correct the mistakes committed in relation to Sala's legal situation. Also, the president pointed out that the reason for his visit to the region of Tucumán is to ratify his commitment with the human rights as the basis of the rule of law.
We're governed by the rule of law, and in the rule of law, justice must function differently from what I feel it works at this moment. I ask the judges of Jujuy to please leave aside theories and doctrines that were spread during the years of the previous government and that definitely contradict the essence of the rule of law.
The Argentinian president, during his press conference, indicated that the indigenous leader is in the process of recovering.
What is happening to Milagro is not made up. The doctors, the sanitarium, gave me the report that says that she has a thrombosis, that she has a deep venous thrombosis in the left inferior member. And that is not a minor matter. It is a serious matter. Thanks God, the doctors say that her evolution is good, that she would require more time in the sanatorium, more time to rest, and that, well, she will follow the corresponding medical treatment.
In Colombia, the first transition meeting between the incoming government of President-elect Gustavo Petro and the outgoing government of Iván Duque takes place. At the Casa de Nariño seat of the government of Colombia, the transition meetings begin after the formation of 23 teams headed by the people delegated by Gustavo Petro, plus 10 responsible people who will be in charge of gathering information on transcendental issues for the incoming government. Among the priority issues to be discussed are social inclusion and reconciliation, hunger risk, the crisis, public banking, and anti-corruption in drugs and drug trafficking. Again, confrontation in Haiti left around 200 people dead. In a human rights report, the National Defense Network stated that 191 people were killed, including 107 men, 76 women, 6 girls, and 2 boys, while at least 18 women were raped and later executed. The report also denounced the silence of the authorities about the massacre in the plain of Cul-de-Sac, north of Port-au-Prince. In this regard, international media report that the Padillas, such as those of Chien Mejan and the 400 Mawoso, operate in the outskirts of the capital and have even tried to isolate the territory. Petrocaribe is celebrating 17 years since its creation, representing an integration mechanism that promotes regional socio-economic development. The initiative was prompted by Venezuela, by then-President Hugo Chavez, within the framework of the Bolivarian Alliance of the Peoples of our Americas People's Trade Treaty, consolidating a scheme of equitable exchange among the Caribbean nations. Through the joint ventures, it is intended to strengthen the technical and technological capacities of the member countries and advance in the development of the projects that allow the efficient use and management of the available energy resources. Despite of the pressure from the U.S., Petrocaribe continues with its strategic priority based on the principles of solidarity, cooperation, and sovereignty. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back. In the United States, the death toll of the migrants exposed to high temperatures and cramped inside a truck in San Antonio, Texas, rises to 53. The commissioner of the National Migration Institute, Francisco Garduño, informed that the vehicle was captured by security cameras on the 27th of June, parked 235 kilometers from the border with Mexico. According to a U.S. immigration agency, 3 people have been detained as suspects of the human trafficking and homicides, including the driver who passed himself off as a migrant. Now we move on to other topics. In Venezuela, authorities maintain alert and prevention before the passage of a tropical cyclone. In view of the passage of Cyclone Bonnie along the Venezuelan coasts, authorities continue the alert and maintain cleaning and prevention activities at national level. According to the National Institute of Meteorology and Hydrology, the cyclone located about 100 kilometers from the state of La Guaira weakened in the morning. Due to its displacement speed between 45 and 48 kilometers per hour, it has not developed completely. Consequently, rains in the central western region are expected, and also that the hurricane will reach the Paraguaná Peninsula in the state of Falcón in the afternoon.
Now, as I was telling you in relation to our country, at this moment rainfall is moving towards the state of Falcón, Yaracuy, Carabobo, Aragua, all the areas of the Great Caracas, La Guaira, north of Aragua, also the north of Trujillo, which are areas affected at this moment by cloud bands of this tropical storm. And we also estimate that it will continue to move westward. In the afternoon, it will possibly reach the Paraguaná Peninsula, and by tomorrow, at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, on Thursday, it will be already to the north of Colombia, leaving the national territory. However, once it is further west, at the north of Colombia, it could possibly continue to affect the entire western region of the country.
We remain on the topic. The Nicaraguan government is anticipating the arrival of a potential tropical cyclone and began the preparations for a possible impact on the East Coast. According to the Vice President Rosario Murillo, the authorities of the National System for the Prevention, Mitigation and Attention to Disasters are attentive to the meteorological event, at the same time that they are preparing to prevent the greatest number of damages. If the projection and the forecast of the U.S. National Hurricane Center are maintained, a cyclone will be forming next Friday in the front of the Nicaraguan coasts. And thousands of people took to the streets of Madrid in Spain to protest against the NATO summit which is being held in the city. 2 protests were called by the social movements during the days of the summit, but they were banned by the authorities. More than 10,000 agents are deployed in the area where the multilateral meeting is taking place in order to ensure the security of the event and avoid any protest. Citizens have shown their rejection to the agreements signed by Madrid and the transatlantic organization that plan to increase military spending in the country by 2%. The leaders of the 5 states bordering the Caspian Sea met in Turkmenistan's capital Ashgabat for the 6th Caspian Summit. Established by Iran, Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan and Azerbaijan, the summit is a platform to discuss the implementation and development of Caspian Sea resources. As part of the Caspian Summit, the participating countries agreed that military forces of other states may not enter the Caspian Sea. In this regard, the leaders spoke in favor of an agreement that includes confidence-building measures on military activities and establishes the rules of governing regional cooperation in this field. During his speech at the summit, the Russian President Vladimir Putin called the promotion of political trade, energy, transport and security cooperation. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The Russian government rejected NATO's stance that described the Eurasian nation as a threat to the member countries of the bloc and its allies. The Russian Foreign Ministry authorities assured that the strategic policy of the Atlantic Alliance is destroying what remains of the European architecture. Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister, Sergei Ryabkov, emphasized that Moscow will do everything possible to guarantee its own security and that of its allies under any circumstances. This comes after NATO member countries adopted the so-called Madrid strategic concept during the recent NATO summit held in the Spanish capital, where Russia and China are defined as a fundamental threat to the transatlantic security. And Syria decided to recognize the independence of the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic. Taking into account a common will and desire to establish relations in all fields, the Syrian Arab Republic has decided to recognize the independence and the sovereignty of the Lugansk People's Republic and the Donetsk People's Republic, announced the Syrian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates. The Chancellery informed that the communication will be established with each of these 2 countries to agree on the frameworks for strengthening relations, as well as the establishment of diplomatic relations in accordance with established norms. In Russia, a total of 70 foreign organizations from 12 countries connected to the Russian financial messaging system, the SPFS, similar to SWIFT. The head of the Russian Central Bank invited foreign market participants to join the SPFS institution, which became fully operational in 2017, which so far has at least 70 banking entities from several countries, but their names are being withheld to avoid possible Western sanctions in retaliation for trade transactions with Russia. This system was created in response to the probability, already a reality, of excluding Russian banks from the SWIFT network, which covers more than 11,000 large organizations from almost every country in the world. In Qatar, talks begin with the aim of reactivating the nuclear agreement. At the same time, Iran is considering reaching a possible agreement with the U.S. The Iranian government affirmed that it is possible to reach an agreement with Washington, but warned that it will not give in on its red lines during the indirect negotiation in Doha. The first round of joint talks for the lifting of sanctions between Iran's chief negotiator Ali Bagheri Kani and the European Union coordinator Enrique Mora was held in the Qatari capital, with an agenda that promotes the revival of negotiations unilaterally abandoned by the former U.S. President Donald Trump in May 2018. Israeli lawmakers unanimously approved a bill to dissolve the parliament that pushes the country closer towards its fifth election in less than 4 years. Members of the Prime Minister Naftali Bennett's outgoing coalition and the opposition led by the former Premier Benjamin Netanyahu clash in the Israeli parliament since last week over a dissolution bill. The opposition's readiness to dissolve the parliament suggested Netanyahu's efforts to form a new government had stalled. According to the bill, Parliament will dissolve with new elections to be held on October 25th and November 1st, with the date to be set after further negotiations. Lebanon's lawmakers designate incumbent Prime Minister Nabid Mikdadi to form a new government on Thursday, more than a month after parliamentary elections that yield no clear majority. The 66-year-old billionaire, who had been widely expected to keep his job, secured 54 votes during parliamentary consultations, giving him a clear edge over other potential nominees. Analysts said that forming the new government could take weeks, if not months, despite the economic emergency facing the country. Lebanon defaulted of its debt in 2020. The local currency has lost around 90% of its value on the black market, and the UN now considers 4 in 5 Lebanese to be poor. Off the coast of Senegal, a boat carrying more than 100 migrants caught fire, causing the death of 14 people. The tragedy occurred off the town of Kafountine. According to the investigations, the accident was caused by the carelessness of a smoker in the area where the ship's fuel was being stored. So far, the Senegalese Coast Guard has rescued more than 90 people from the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Some of them were transported to hospitals to treat burns suffered in the catastrophe. In this regard, the authorities assured that they will open an investigation to find out the identity of the organizers of the trip, who were transporting African immigrants and asylum seekers, and also from other parts of the world to the European coasts. teleSUR expands its signal with new satellite parameters. Since more than ever, the world connects to us, and their stories are heard in other farther away nations. These parameters are in place since June 1st in Latin America and the Caribbean, both in English and in Spanish, and quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. So we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.